Hello and welcome to the Grand Cinema Hotel, a podcast hosted by three friends who love cinema. I'm Oliver and I'm joined by Gus. Tonight you'll be staying in room 139, Us, the second feature film directed by Jordan Peele. So go ahead, get comfortable and throw on that do not disturb sign as we untether ourselves from the shadows with Us.
What are you people?
It's us.
They look exactly like us. They think like us. They know where we are.
What's going on, all you tethered? And thanks for checking back into the Grand Cinema Hotel. Don't forget, if you're listening to us on YouTube, to like, comment, and subscribe. And you can find us on all podcasting platforms. And today we are back with another installment of the Jordan Peele trilogy. We are also a man down today. Nate, we love you. We miss you. We can't wait to have you back. But today we are doing Jordan Peele's second film, Us. Alvaro, we saw this film together back in 2019. Do you remember how you felt walking out of it?
Yeah, what's up, guys? 2019, it's been a while now. It feels like backtracking to the first time we watched this. I think I remember even when we watched the first trailer to this being really like hype for it. Obviously, it's after the already building up hype after Get Out, which he had delivered really well. And then this movie kind of seemed, in all honesty, even then and now even more cemented, seemed like he was going a step up. And then when we watched the theater and I walked out, it was a complex movie even then to think about actually what he was trying to comment on. But then now after giving it a rewatch, I feel like it solidified a lot of my questions from that first viewing that we had in the theater. But this movie stood out even from then in terms of him stepping up in every aspect and especially visually in this movie.
Yeah, definitely. So we talked about this on the Nope episode about him taking those steps up, like you said. And I do think that even budget-wise, it's so much big. It's such a bigger film than Get Out, even though I guess this is kind of getting ahead of ourselves. But I know you and I and most people probably think that Get Out is better than Us. But I do feel like he's taking a whole different step in a new direction on this movie. I think it's also a good idea that he didn't exactly try to do the same thing as Get Out. It's he does these things that he has termed as like social thrillers, right? And I mean, they're really horror films, but they have a lot of thriller aspects to them. I would say the horror is more sprinkled in these first two movies. It is really that like thrilling, chilling, white knuckle type of filmmaking that he really succeeds at.
Agreed.
But with this movie too, I think that it's more genre than Get Out is. Like Get Out is very, I don't want to say to the point, but it's about one thing and there's many different ways to look at it. But Us, I keep getting the names like confused in my mind right now because they're so short. But with Us, I think that he's trying to leave us with more questions than answers. I think even when you look at the ending of this movie, it kind of just cements, for me at least, the idea that this is like an apocalypse movie to some extent.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I really do like this movie. I feel like Jordan Peele has no misses. I do think that all three of them are perfect in their own ways. But I do think this is my least favorite as well. But that's not a slight at all, right?
No, because I think that's the reason we knew after watching like Nope. Well, before watching Nope, actually, that we were gonna do all three of them, and it's because this is the same way we talk about Martin Scorsese. His weakest movies are still way better than a lot of people's, and I think what another standout for this film specifically, and then all three of them, but then we talked about in the Nope episode, is just that it's an original idea, and it does come from, we talked about it, we kind of mentioned it before the pod, like Chuds, right? Obviously, it's like
that's a big inspiration for this movie,
and it's like, again, he's letting his love for cinema help him create a new story, but in his own perspective. And again, I'm getting a little ahead of myself. I'll save that. But I was going to say is this movie, that's why I just even when I was watching last time, there's some parts for me that feel a little like weak, but then I'm like, this is a completely original idea, and like I respect it enough just for that, because I don't think anybody else could really pull off this story, in all honesty.
Yeah, definitely. It kind of reminds me of something like They Live. You know what I mean? Not really in execution or anything, but just this idea of kind of this whole other, not I guess, dimension, kind of. You know what I mean? Like the tethered live in this alternate reality of the ones that we live in. So it just made me think of that movie, almost as if our families like has the glasses on, you know, and they're being the first witness to all of this. But I don't want to get into the inspirations yet either, but there's so many things going on in this movie where if you're a big movie fan, you're like, I recognize that. I've seen that before, but he does it in a way much like Quentin Tarantino, where he takes these things that he loves and he throws them in the blender and he makes this smoothie that's like so original, and you're like, damn, I've never seen anything like this before.
Yeah.
And even I would say the M. Night Shyamalan aspect of it too. That's, to me, it's like Jordan Peele. I think of M. Night Shyamalan and I think Alfred Hitchcock had a baby, and it's Jordan Peele.
And it's just hitting all of like literally the best of what they could both come up with. It's not, he's really taking in all the junk in that blender. All the bones are being left that weren't able to execute on both of their sides. Because like M. Night to me is like, he has like 2 or 3 to really like I like, and then everything else I'm like, oh my God, you know? Yeah. But I can like, Jordan Peele's track record already is, I feel like, is already better than his. So it's like, he takes the same from like what you're talking about is like the perfect comparison. And I think the horror aspect in this movie, like yesterday when I was watching it, I just thought about there's certain scenes where I'm like, where it makes you have those questions, right? But then I'm also like, wouldn't that be the most scary thing, right? If you yourself, like, what the fuck is going on? Isn't that one of the scariest things that could happen? Like, everything else we see is usually like, oh, it's a monster. So you can, or it's, you know, Michael Myers. It's a person that's super strength. Like, as long as I don't see the person, I'm good, right? Yeah. But in this one, it's like, dude, what the fuck is going on? Like, wouldn't that be one of the most scariest things that could happen?
I mean, honestly, if you knocked on your own door and were trying to kill you, I know Jordan Peele had said that a doppelganger, the idea of the doppelganger is like one of the scariest ideas to him, and it's been prevalent in many different stories over hundreds and thousands of years, right? That this idea of the mirror version of you. I feel like we can't help but get to the inspirations kind of early because this movie is full of so many of them. Yeah. So I guess we could just crack this open now. But I saw that, or actually heard him say it in a behind the scenes snippet I was watching, that it's an episode of The Twilight Zone. That's one of the main inspirations for this. And we already talked about on the Nope episode how he worked on the new version of The Twilight Zone. So this movie feels like that as well, it does. You know, and I just feel like because the way that this movie is made, you can't help but talk about the references and the inspirations. It feels like it's a love letter to movies, a little more than Get Out was, or even Nope. Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, I was just agreeing with that. Like, it is a big, like, to me, out of the 3, it's that more than anything. If you've watched any of the movies inspired by or the Twilight Zone, which I know we both have, like, that's this whole feeling of this movie is a really long Twilight Zone episode where at the end of it you could expect the guy in the suit just kind of have to tell you the answers, because that's what like in the era the Twilight Zone was at, they needed that recap, right? Like, to kind of just tell you, be like, you would expect that out of this movie, but you don't get it. And I think that's what's ambitious about this movie. We talked about it leaves you with more questions after the first viewing, and you have to watch it again.
Yeah, I feel like a lesser movie would have the newscast at the end that kind of just tells you. You remember back in 90s movies, a lot of the times the movie would go black and then the screen would kind of split back open and you'd see either a television or a newscast recapping exactly what happened in the entire movie. I feel like that's maybe what some people would want at the end of this movie because it leaves you with so many different questions. But Jordan Peele is above doing something like that. I feel like that's a cheaper filmmaking technique you could put into a movie, but
especially at the end, because interestingly enough, this one has it in the beginning, but it's kind of
it's more alluding to what's going to happen.
It's like it's alluding to the themes that it's going to talk about, you know, or like what is going on like the main reason why this is happening. And that's where I feel like some people, it kind of goes over their head because it's literally the first scenes for like, I think like 20 seconds or something. And that's the stuff that like being able to watch it at home, we didn't have it obviously in the theater, but you can go back and be kind of like, that's like that Reagan era, you know what I mean? Which I don't really have too much commentary on. I wasn't alive for it, but it seems like all those themes of the movies or that era is really what this movie's commenting on. And that's the kind of stuff where when I first watched it, it kind of just went over my head, honestly.
Yeah, it's got a lot of the themes of like, you know, I've heard him talk about American exceptionalism, kind of just feeling like Americans deserve the life they have instead of just being lucky that you happen to be born here in this country. It's got a lot to do with like class and society and things like that. Yes. And I think this is where you can capitalize the social thriller for this movie a lot more than Get Out, because Get Out is about race and Us is about class, I would say, is the biggest theme that he's working with here. And then with Nope, it's spectacle. So I feel like after this, he's probably going to tackle a whole new like subgenre that he's kind of creating on the fly, which is very interesting. So we've talked about so we've talked about Robert Eggers and we've talked about Jordan Peele now, and we're doing both of their filmographies, right? So this isn't a category I think we could have every episode, but do you think that Jordan Peele had a sophomore slump or a most improved player year with this movie?
Good point.
I want to throw it to sports a little bit. Let's think about it like Anthony Edwards or LaMelo Ball or something like that. How would you rate Jordan Peele coming off of this second movie?
I think it's the most improved.
Yeah?
Yeah, I do. I do.
He didn't hit that wall?
I think the thing is with this is such an interesting movie because conceptually I do think that we talked about a level up, right? So I think it's like when DeJounte Murray was like, oh, I could start getting rebounds and assists, right? And it's like, but you just realizing you can do that. And I think maybe your points go down a little bit, but that's because you're trying to be a little bit more faceted, right? So I feel like obviously for a lot of people, Get Out is like almost a perfect film. And I think it's heavy-handedness that you're talking about compared to this movie, at least, in terms of it's about one thing, about commenting on like black exceptionalism and what it means in this country, right? But because I feel like that literally was something, a movie was never made like that about, especially then when he made it. That movie is special in that way. But then this movie, I feel like he takes us, like it was really hard to obviously push. He wasn't going to make another film about the same theme because he didn't want to box himself into that. But then also he wanted to make something bigger because we know now based off of Nope, his inspirations are like Spielberg for those horror films. And in terms of like this film just tries to tackle so much more. And on rewatches now, every time I watch it, I think I like it more, you know, and because I think I start to understand because I've looked into it now, like, oh, this is actually about something that really went over my head the first time. And I think it's like for this podcast, at least for us three, I know that like, isn't that kind of what we like so much more when it kind of, more questions do arise. And then when we do get the answers, we're like, damn, that makes it so much better because they're not just snobby questions. Like, I didn't give you the answer because I want you to think. No, it's like, I gave you these questions so you could really think about what is this movie trying to say? And when you really sit down and think about it, I think like the tethered plays so many people could fit in the tethered because you're talking about it's like a class thing.
Yeah, and when the haves and the have-nots.
Like, especially like everybody can watch this movie and they're in a different class, right? And it's like I do think when you're trying to better yourself, or if you're really down at the bottom, you could identify with what this movie is trying to say. And it's just like you said, sprinkled with horror to actually make it like, oh my God, the monster's chasing you. But you could kind of take that concept away and it's still kind of really just commenting on American classism.
It could be like this dramatic thriller, but by having those small sprinkles here and there, he really elevates it into being a horror film, which it's close to not being one. I like what you said about the characters as well. You have to have these small outbursts of violence so that you can be reminded that this is a quote unquote monster movie as well. So you do have to have these tethered acting, like brute strength, animalistic, some of them just look sadistic. They kind of they gave me like zombie vibes the first time I saw it, but when I was watching some behind the scenes stuff with the makeup artist, he said that the aesthetic they were going for was kind of like these like zoned out vampires more than zombies. So that when you really like look at the tethered, if you notice, they all look like they're depraved of sunlight, obviously. So they all kind of have this weird like glow to them.
Yeah.
And their eyes are all like those like raccoon circles, you know what I mean? Their hair looks all like greasy and like it hasn't been taken care of in a while. They have these really distinct outfits, right? That we'll get to what those mean later, but they have these they just have this distinct look that is so iconic on the first viewing, where I think it really, everything about it just cements that you're in a horror movie, like when you are seeing the tethered. I think that's the point I was trying to make. I kind of got off track a little bit, but I just think it's so, like, I know we're talking about Get Out and Us and the differences, and I think that this really is trying to be a monster movie versus Get Out just having that like human horror aspect to it, because I do think that the tethered are meant to be looked at as less than, and I think that also has something to do with like the class talk and the society talk going on in this movie. But it still kind of stumps me to this day exactly what he's trying to say when I think about this movie.
Yeah, no, I think it was only because we're doing this episode for it that I'll be honest, I like remotely looked into trying to get explanations. I usually don't like looking at that stuff because I don't like being led to, oh, it's about this. But this movie has so many themes thrown at you, like little hints that you might, like for us, like we weren't alive for it. So why would I know what that type of era was? Like that 10-year difference that he has on us, that's commenting on how America was during a certain era. And I don't know anything about it. I'm sure my dad does, but it's not something that we talk about, you know? And I think that this movie did need a little bit more of like me looking into it to try to figure out like, well, what does Jordan Peele kind of came out and said, you know, what are his inspirations? And I feel like that's the most you can really take from what are those movies kind of commenting on. It's usually about like classism and just kind of not appreciating what you have. And I think this movie even takes it a step further in terms of we create our own shadows, because we kind of we try to further ourselves so forward, right, in American classism, that we kind of like do this, I don't know, kind of, I guess you'd call it like shitty motives or just these actions that aren't really the greatest of us highlighted, and we put them in our shadow self, and that thing lives underground and all of these. And I feel like it's just an embodiment of that idea.
Yeah, the last thing I really want to say about the themes and ideas going on in this movie is I don't think that there is any good and evil characters. I think that because of the big twist in this movie later on, that you're meant to feel empathy towards everyone at least a little bit, because everyone in this movie is trying to survive. So I mean, when it's survival times, things are just a lot different. You know, you kind of can't judge these characters the same way you would in a different setting. But no, should we just talk about the big reveal at the end? Because I mean, spoilers, yes, right? It's been long enough. If you want to see this movie, you would have seen it by now.
I do think it's just because you want to tie it into something that
Yeah.
you're going to say. Because I was going to say is like I do think we should talk about it. I do think we should wait a bit to talk about it. Do you think your idea could wait, or like what you trying to say, or is it just perfect for right now? If it is,
I mean,
like,
I'm not
go
gonna say
ahead.
it's perfect for right now. I'm not the perfect podcaster, but
I get what you mean though, because sometimes we may forget what we're gonna say because it's just perfectly lit up right now. But because I do want to, we have to talk about it though for sure. But you know how sometimes we wait a little bit. That's my only.
We'll wait. All right.
Cool.
Let's just move on and let's talk about the cast.
I did want to tie into something that you said just to close out that thought though, is that he does such a good idea with that twist to kind of at the end solidify the idea that even the tethered do not know what's going on either.
Yeah.
So that's why you have to show some sympathy, because just as confused as they are, it's just as confused as the other party in this film is. And it's just like, what is going on, right? And like that's the big question. And yeah, I just wanted to help solidify like your point with that.
All right. Thank you for doing that, because I was totally gonna get off track, but we'll talk about the cast because I feel like that's the huge highlight in this movie, and I feel like this is Jordan Peele's strongest characteristic as a director is his work with the actors. I think he brings out phenomenal performances of every actor that he works with. And I think that is going to be his calling card going forward. Oops, excuse me for that. I do think that that's going to be his calling card, is his ability to get these great performances out of actors who maybe are underappreciated by other directors, but he just knows who to get and how to get a hell of a performance out of them. And I know it's because he's a collaborator. I mean, he's an actor as well, so he knows what that's like. But the performances by Lupita Nyong'o in this movie they got to be one of the most slept on performances of that decade, right? Of 2010 to 2020. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's up there with Toni Collette and Hereditary as probably like the biggest snubs I can think of, because you're getting 2 for the price of 1 in this, and they're 2 completely different performances. And when you're watching this movie, you can't even think that it's the same person. It just feels so freaking different. You know what I mean? It's terrifying. It's so satisfying to watch it being executed, and I definitely feel like, thanks to the cinematography as well, that it blends together so well that illusion falls away after about 2 seconds, because it's so goddamn scary what you're seeing on the screen. So, how did you feel about those 2 performances the first time you watched this, or even on the rewatch?
Yeah, I mean, you laid it out pretty honestly too, though, but we did talk about it in the Nope episode as well, because we compared her with Keke Palmer. But I do think cast-wise, on the rewatch now, I could solidify that this is probably his strongest. They're all experienced too, but I think the standout here for me, is obviously her, and I think it's the fact that they're 2 different characters, but then again, with the reveal, you see how they're kind of all intertwined too, and they're not that much different in real aspect. Like, it was enough to maintain the illusion of that the whole movie up until basically the last 2 minutes, right? Like something like that, maybe like 3 minutes. And I think that's what even makes it more interestingly a dynamic of a performance. Honestly, the fact that, in the same way, I think Hereditary is a really good comparison with Toni Collette, because Toni Collette kind of does the same thing in Hereditary, and I think it's very slept on, and I think Jordan Peele wanted to have someone like her. I feel like her ability, Lupita Nyong'o's ability to be able to have performances like this, Jordan Peele understands, and that's why he wanted her for this role. And we kind of talked about that joke last time too, about like how Star Wars kind of butchered having her. Yeah. And I think she should have more roles, honestly. And
she's not in enough.
No, she's not.
No. I mean, unlike Daniel Kaluuya, who is on fire and is in something almost every year, and it's usually a big movie as well, Lupita Nyong'o hasn't been doing as much, I would say, or it's kind of under the radar stuff. Like, I saw the zombie movie she made on Hulu. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. I think it's called Little Monsters.
She made it?
Well, she's in it. It's a zombie movie, and it came out right after Us, so I think she was kind of trying to double down in the horror genre really quick. That's a horror comedy, but I feel like she's just so underappreciated. I mean, I know maybe she's busy with Black Panther and things like that. Like, I don't understand how much time that takes up. Maybe it's taking up a majority of her time. I know once you're in that system, you kind of get locked into it, but she's in the Disney studio, but they're not using her the right way. And I feel like Jordan Peele and her performances prior to even being in Star Wars and things like that, that's where she's really shined, but she's not as big as she should be. I mean, I think she's maybe been in like a Netflix movie here or there. Unless I'm wrong, I think she's in that movie like the 365 or something like that.
Yeah,
but
that's
she just is not being utilized the right way, and I don't understand why. Because she's proven time and time again that she's a phenomenal actor, and I don't know how you could watch Us and you're not lined up to just have her in like 100 different things. You know
and
what I mean?
He did that so well in Get Out, highlighting that, and in this too, kind of taking a little.
Imagine if she was in Dune. How cool would that be?
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. That'd be phenomenal. That's a great idea. Actually.
She should be in Dune. Cast her. Yeah. What about Oppenheimer? Why not
everybody was in
Oppenheimer?
Oppenheimer? Why not her? But this is where we talk about where Jordan Peele really differentiates himself in terms of a creative director and what he can pull out of these characters, or not these actors, sorry. And like, it might just be because they both understand. Jordan Peele is also an actor, like you said, and he's also black. And it's like, I feel like that is a dynamic that doesn't obviously exist in Hollywood very much, especially for these type of movies. Like we talked about, there was Ava DuVernay, right?
Yeah, she kind of fell off.
Ryan Coogler, and like him. And it's not that there is more black directors, obviously, but I'm
not
talking
on
about
a certain level of filmmaking
where they've been given, I guess, like the green light by even most studios,
like free reign.
Yeah.
I mean, Jordan Peele has about as much, as far as we know, has about as much control as you could possibly have as a director. And I think it's paid dividends for Universal. You know, they've seen they've gotten the reward for letting him do his own thing. And I mean, I don't know how much free reign Ryan Coogler has. I mean, I'm guessing not a ton.
Exactly.
And Ava DuVernay has kind of just fallen off the side of the cliff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So Jordan Peele is really, unfortunately, one of a kind right now.
And I feel like that connection that they can make, they really try to bring their A game with him, you know, and because they really take their platform seriously in terms of forwarding that not every black movie should be about slavery.
Yeah, exactly.
You know? I think they
don't all have to be pain stories.
And I think they take that very seriously with him, and he knows how to draw specifically, like, let's make something that Steven Spielberg would make, or let's make something that's going to resonate. And I think this movie, Us, like in 20 years, people will like it more.
Yeah, I do see what you're saying about that, like, Spielberg touch that he has in his movies. I mean, this one, you have like a small Jaws reference, right? Or I gotta stop saying I heard Jordan Peele talking about in an interview that he loves the like the horror genre of There Goes the Neighborhood. You know, it's a family, something like Poltergeist, where the whole neighborhood just goes completely to shit, kind of becomes apocalyptic at some point. But he had never seen it through a black family's perspective, and you know, he took it into his own hands of, okay, well, I'm gonna make that movie then. And this movie has a beautiful family dynamic. Since we're talking about the cast, I mean, Winston Duke plays a perfect, just regular dad, you know what I mean? Trying to impress his kids, but they think he's lame. The kids give a phenomenal performance in this. And like you said, it's not one of those movies that has an all-black cast for the most part and makes it about pain or slavery. It's a movie about seeing them in a positive light, even though they're going through some horrible shit. But it's at least nice to see it from a different perspective. I mean, as Latinos, we know, like, they're never going to make this movie for us. We'll get one of these in like 40 years, maybe.
Yeah, somebody who watched this movie will be inspired by something.
Yeah, some 7-year-old, when this is like the first horror movie they've seen, we're rooting for you, kid.
They're like, yeah, wait a minute. But yeah, this is obviously, that's just commenting obviously too on America as a whole, but those films do not exist. And then you have someone like Sidney Poitier's movies that are kind of like the beginnings of that, but they've never been remixed, I guess you would be the word, with horror films. They've always been kind of, I guess they'd be serious dramas or something, right?
Or feel good stories at the end.
They're too also like special in their kind, where they don't really want to try to throw a horror element in there. But Jordan Peele is like, well, wait, like there's a way to comment on these things, but also make them understand the horrors of these things, right? And I think no one could do it like him, and I think that's why this film stands out still to me, and why the cast, obviously, just, he knows who to pick for these roles. And you brought up the kids, like the kids do, I think, a phenomenal job in this film, and I think that's why I think it's my favorite cast out of all of his, because he gets a whole family to act like you truly believe they've been a family, you know?
Yeah, like where we start with our family is very Shining like. We're just in the car with them, right? But and we get those overhead shots. I mean, I feel like The Shining really is heavily influencing the first two movies with these
the blueprint.
Yeah, they're like the blueprint, you know what I mean? The Shining, like, start your movie like The Shining and then go from there. Yeah. But I do believe that this family is a real family from the second we see them. You know, they're just in the car on a little road trip or whatever, but that dynamic is just there. I mean, Winston Duke sells being a dad so well. And I don't know if you remember him from, he kind of got his big break on Modern Family a few years prior.
Oh, really? No, I didn't know
that. He played a football player, high school aged, who lived with Cam and Mitchell. But a few years later, he's playing like a 35-year-old dad in Us. So this guy's range is teenager to middle-aged man, apparently.
Was this before Black Panther?
I don't remember. Yeah, I think.
Let me make sure.
Well, Modern Family was before Black Panther, then Black Panther, and then Us.
Because you remember he's in Black Panther.
Yeah, and he's in Baku. I mean,
because that was
these were the back-to-back punches. I don't remember what order they are, but these were the two things that solidified him as like a big star. And I know he's been in quite a few things, but this is easily his best performance.
I think so. It's because he was given the role to do so.
Yeah, and I mean he plays that like Clark Griswold type dad so well. He's just trying to impress his kids. I mean he buys the boat, Crawdaddy. You know, he's constantly competing with Tim Heidecker's character for who has more. You know, he comments on things like, oh, well, you got a brand new car, and oh, their beach house is bigger than our beach house. And just seeing it from someone like Winston Duke, who has that range, it just kind of threw me off the first time, because I was like, dude, I just seen him playing a teenager, and now I'm seeing him play like this middle-aged man. And I don't know, it's just something about him where he sells it so well. He's charismatic, but he's also very dorky. I don't know. He's got a little Phil Dunphy going on.
Yeah, seriously. He's a perfect dad bod for this role.
Yeah, that's another thing too, is he just has the dad look. Like, put him in some New Balances and some khakis and I totally buy it.
I really see, though, honestly, this role to me, it feels like it's Jordan Peele to me.
Kind of. Yeah, I get it. Like a little dorky, but also trying to be also really funny, but just kind of dorky.
Like, maybe it's him trying to be like, this is what I would be if this was my family. Like, this would be the dad that I would want to be. And it's because, you know, Winston Duke is huge, too. It's probably like at least like 6'2". It looks like he's at least 6'2" or something like that. So, and I think, again, the kind of relationship they all have as a family feels also real, in terms of if you ever had any black friends, or if you've ever hung out with their family, in terms of how they see the world and how they see society and how they get along with each other. It's very different than anything you usually see. And I think that's the stuff that they can get right, because they are all part of Black American families, you know. And I think that's like what I really enjoy from this movie the most is they still act like when Winston Duke, the tethered come into his property, right? Like, he still like you said, dorky. So at first he doesn't really want to do much. Like, he's like, you know, I'll just talk to them down. But then later he turned on that, like, I have to be the hero, right? And he kind of just goes out there and he does his deep voice.
He's like, hold on, let me try to scare these people.
Yeah, he gets out
even though he doesn't want to. We all know that's not him. That's just he's trying to, you know, Jordan Peele turns it on his head. It's like, oh, let me try to like act like a stereotype so I can try to scare these people. But holy fuck, I'm scared shitless.
Exactly. And like, we get that. And that's what I wanted to say too about this movie, is that I think I have to rewatch Get Out, because I thought Get Out was funny, but this one feels like it might be the funniest one.
Oh, definitely,
because of him, because of Winston Duke's character,
and the kids too. The kids have some funny one-liners. I wanted to talk about, I believe his name is Evan Alex. Let me make sure I have that right. But he plays, it is Evan Alex. He plays Jason. And his performance is hilarious in this movie. I like the part when he tells his sister, he's like, yeah, go kiss my anus. Yeah, and he's like, anus isn't a curse word.
Yeah. He's like, I would have preferred you had a curse word.
And it's just those small things where I can definitely see the Spielberg shining through, because of E.T. I think there's something he says in E.T. I can't remember. You should pull my cinephile card for this, because I'm sure people are screaming right now who are listening to this, like, he said this. But it's like something along the lines of, like, he calls him a butt face or like an ass face or something like that. And I was just like, oh, there he goes. I can see the Spielberg right there. And he's trying to have that brother-sister arguing dynamic that we see. And he really got that in Nope, but I feel like this is where it started, right? Mm-hmm. Like him building upon his ideas.
Those are the kids growing up in Nope.
Yeah, it's kind of got that same dynamic. Mm-hmm. But, yeah. I mean, this family, I just feel like they play a perfect family, and I do think we have to talk about their other side as well. We definitely can't leave that out. So all these characters that we've just talked about, they also have dual roles as tethereds, who are complete opposite versions of them. And I don't know about you, but I think this is where they get the most time to shine.
Yeah, because I mean, this is where we've talked about a little of this with the tragedy of Macbeth in terms of body contortion.
Yeah.
So Jason, the shadow version of him, does that.
Pluto
does that. Yeah, he does that a lot in his role, and that's what I mean. Kind of like it. Most of their acting comes from their shadow selves, because even though they can't really talk, they show so much personality through even him, like a mask, or sometimes taking off the mask. So shows so much personality, and then through their actions, they say so much. And they're also meant to be polar opposites of their regular self. So they act, they like the sister's character, her shadow self, to me seems the most creepy, you know?
Yeah, she's definitely the scariest because she looks like demented. You know what I mean? She's got that sick Joker smile on her face the entire movie.
Exactly. So, and I think that's really good, because in the terms of the family, she seems the most uninterested, you know, in what's kind of going on at first. So
she seems like she's in it for the kills, not for the whole message and revolution that the character Red is going for.
Exactly. It doesn't like so her shadow self just kind of seems so in the same way, just more about it doesn't matter to her what's going on. Like kind of like, yeah, sorry, I lost my track of thought.
You know what though? I'm glad you brought that up, because in our car sequence in the very beginning of the family just on the road trip, the sister character is telling the family about like all these events that are going on in the world, right?
She's a woke.
Yeah, she's a woke warrior. Yeah. she's very aware of what's going on. Goddamn, she has an iPhone. Of course she knows what's going on. But she's telling them all these things, some stuff about the climate, stuff, just I forget exactly what she says. But the family just kind of brushes it off, and I feel like we've all kind of been in this scenario where you tell your family something horrible you just read, and they're like, "Put your phone away. Oh, you don't need to be worried about that." And she tells them, she's like, "Well, I'm the only one who cares about the end of the world, I guess."
Yeah.
But through her tethered, I feel like what you said is correct. She seems completely unbothered by this whole thing. It's just kind of fun for her. We see her go on a hunt, and it looks like she's having a fucking blast. Yeah. You know what I mean? And then her real version, Zora, is obviously going through the worst thing she's ever been through.
Yeah, exactly. Like the living nightmare of having all this information at your grasp and not being able to know that this was coming. Like, where was the article about mole people?
No one warned me about the mole people.
Yeah, exactly. I would have told them, and we would have all been prepared.
Jordan Peele did say that Zora and Umbre, that's her tethered version, that was his favorite character in the movie, because he felt like it just embodied the movie the best.
Mm-hmm. I could see that.
I would say my least favorite of the tethered performances is Winston Dukes, just because they make him so brutish. Yeah, they do the boys kind of dirty, like at least Pluto's got the cool arsonist thing going on. Yeah. You know what I mean? He's got fire. He's got a cool look. He likes fire. I can get down with that. Yeah. But Abraham, the tethered version of Gabe, the husband, sorry if we haven't said their names yet, I just feel like he is just down for the cause. He's kind of just the bane of this movie, the heavy for Red. Yeah. He's just like, yeah, sure, whatever.
I think they did a good way of setting that up, though, too, because even when Lupita Nyong'o's shadow is talking about that, like, they didn't even get married because they wanted to. It's because their real versions did. So it's kind of like, in terms of even what's going on down there, they're not really a family. Like, it's just that he happens to be the head of it because his real self is the head of the real family.
This is going to get a little sidetracked, but I know these are the types of questions that you have about this movie. So if you think about how this movie works, right? We have these underground tunnels that house these tethered, right? I guess we have to assume that every person in the United States has a cloned version of themselves living underground, right?
In a way, yeah.
I guess so. No. Well, yeah. Who knows, right? That's the whole point. Lupita Nyong'o's character and Winston Duke's character, if they're not from the same area, these are the kind of questions I have. It's like, where does he come from? Did he have to travel from? Maybe he lived underground in Texas or something like that, and she lived underground in California. So was he transported there? Like, what brings them together? These are the things that you're never going to get an answer for, but they leave you that question that's just going to, like, itch at your brain forever. You know, you're like, how does that work? Did they just so happen to grow up in the same area? Before they gave up on this experiment, did they transport him to like, oh, we got to take your ass over here to California now?
Yeah, those are what I mean is when I get there and I'm like, that's why it makes me like, I like what this movie says, but it makes so much questions in terms of the story too, because we even get that when like Jason's character is about to do some evil Knievel shit, right? And then it's like all of a sudden he just remembers, oh, he's my shadow. I could just do this one thing and he'll have to follow. But like he hasn't been following anything you've done up until any point in this movie. So how come all of a sudden he's like, oh, wait, I have to do exactly what he does?
Yeah.
Those are the things where I'm like, that's very convenient. Then now they could do that.
It's plot armor. Come on. Our main characters have to live, dog.
Even though like that out of the 3 movies to me seems like to take me out the most in this movie, even when I was rewatching it. Like those stuff that you just brought up, like I guess like cinema sins type shit. Like, you know? Like where
the clock never changed.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, well, they're just sometimes I'm like, I guess because again, the whole premise of this movie is you don't understand. And that's the kind of the horror, but then I'm like, that seems a little like convenient that like you wouldn't get how that works.
I mean, I feel like he's going against the precedent he set, because in Get Out you do have the big exposition at the end explaining every single thing and why it makes sense, and you know exactly what the fuck is going on.
The dude in the room in the Matrix,
the TV, TV, like I talked about. Wow, he has deployed that tactic before. Cheap.
The first one.
Yeah, but
and the people ate it.
Yeah. The people ate that shit up.
No.
Yeah, I mean, these are the questions you're asking throughout the movie, but I feel like the execution is done well enough to, I don't want to say ignore it, but by the time you get to the end, you realize like it doesn't fucking matter, because apparently the world has gone to complete shit. But it does leave a lot of questions.
Yeah, we just like, that's like not even questions that it's like, what is this about? To me, it's like, how would you explain this? Like, how does that make any sense? Or there's more, but
where did they get the scissors? Where did they get the red outfits? Right. Yeah, I mean, these are kind of not unforgivable things, but they just leave you with so many questions. Like, maybe if these people had been naked, I wouldn't even be. I'd be like, damn, that's just creepy and weird as fuck. It's like some weird Attack on Titan shit. They're getting attacked by doppelgangers who are naked.
Because like obviously we get the allegory with the scissors, what it means, right? Like untether yourself, cut the line, right?
And it's a Freddy Krueger type of deal. You know, I mean, you got the glove, you get the scissors. This is heavily influenced by Nightmare on Elm Street, I would say.
And that's where we talk about like sprinkling the horror elements in there, right? Knowing what we like in horror films, and we like gloves breaking through glass, right?
Yes.
And giallos.
Yes.
So there is certain things that just work so well in terms of creating a horror movie and it being as ambitious as this is. But there's a lot of questions in that same, like, because damn.
More than usual, right?
More than there should be.
Yeah, because I mean, like in giallos, you know, they just wear all black gloves. Like I'm never questioning like where'd they get that outfit from. Yeah. But with the tethered, it's so uniform, it's so precise. I mean, how did you get this many sandals? How did you do the tethered have an Amazon account? You know what I mean? Like, just where'd they get these jumpsuits
tethered
from?
Amazon, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's just it's questions that you shouldn't even be thinking about, right? But I feel like they wanted to make these people look iconic and give them a new horror look that we'll be thinking about for years. But fortunately, nobody thinks about movies for years anymore, except for people like us.
Yep.
But I don't know. Maybe he's trying to make a Halloween costume, you know? It's just something you'll always think about. You're like, damn, the red jumpsuits, the sandals, the scissors. But I just remember thinking the first time I watched this movie, I'm like, where'd they get all this shit?
That's like, yeah, this is the plot holes where I'm like, I guess, yeah, we could just ride with it, you know? Or I always think like, when I was watching, I was like, how come it like she had to come back to the beach though for everything to start? Like,
why didn't they track her down?
Or why did it not happen anytime at and I guess I understand later because it explains how instrumental Lupita Nyong'o's shadow is to, I guess, like liberating the idea.
Well, now that we're here, can we talk about this?
Yeah, I feel like
reveal. Go ahead. So
okay, so the reveal we get at the end, and this honestly, I like how this
is
reveal
a top tier twist.
Yeah, like this is sick, and I like how Jason is kind of like us in the audience, right?
He gets these little hints throughout.
Yeah, I do love it how at the end it pays off. Anyways, though, our twist is that Lupita Nyong'o's shadow self took her in the beginning, and it's kind of, she replaced her. So it's kind of been the shadow one that's been the one we've been watching through this whole movie, and that's why for the long time she says she has a hard time speaking. It's because she's really been learning how to try to speak with them, because we know that they can't speak, and we get like kind of just flashbacks on her shadow version not being able to talk because she kind of fucked up her throat when she first took her, and we get this reveal, and I think it just really works, the reveal, because the shadow self is so convinced that she doesn't remember either that she was the real self, you know, and I just think I was not expecting that the first time that I saw it, and I just think it's one of the top twists that I've seen in a long time. And so, why did we bring that up? What were we talking about?
Well, let's just be completely clear here, just in case anyone didn't get that. So we've been rooting for the wrong character the entire time, right? So the Lupita Nyong'o that we think is our protagonist and main character is actually her tethered version, and the version that is chasing after her, who we assume is the tethered in the beginning, is the real Lupita Nyong'o that was kidnapped as a little kid. Mm-hmm. She got separated from her parents. She went into this maze that apparently leads to the underground tunnel. This is another one of those, like, what the fuck? Why are these two things connected, right?
Or like, why would it? I mean, realistically, like a lot of people would be going to these mazes at the beach, and like, why would this be the one maze where that would connect? Right?
It's very convenient to the story, but so that's our big reveal. Even though we do get these small little hints seen through the eyes of Jason, there is a sequence where Lupita Nyong'o has to murder a tethered version of her friends. And she gives these real guttural grunts and noises that, you know, Jason sees, and he starts to kind of put one and two together. He's like, what's going on here? And, you know, later on towards the end, he gets that key piece of information, and he much like us has to kind of just reckon with what happened of like, holy fuck, shit. I've been like living with the wrong person the entire time. Exactly. I kind of got sidetracked too on why we brought it up, but we had to get to it eventually. Damn, this is some bad podcasting right here.
No, I got sidetracked in terms of why we brought it up. I guess we were talking about, no, I don't really remember why we brought it up. But
where do you want to go from here, though? Now that we've had this reveal, I think that it really kind of cements the movie going forward of like what this. Well, not doesn't cement it going forward. It cements everything that you've just seen.
Oh, we were talking. Sorry, I just kind of remember what we were talking about. We were talking about like stuff that doesn't make sense to us.
Okay.
And then I think that reveal was one of the ones like. Because once you get that reveal, I guess for me, I kind of just have questions in terms of, because I said, why does she have to come back?
Oh, okay. Here we go.
For them to like it's time to
start
the revolution.
Yeah, why does the revolution activate?
It's time to help do the helping hands chain across America thing, right? And so I guess what I was gonna get at is that this all only starts to really make sense, or you connect the themes and what it's trying to say. Not after the first watch, because after the first watch, it's like all of these like, it does feel like an M. Night Shyamalan twist, or you're like, wait, what? Like then it just arises more questions in terms of like, so if the little girl walked herself down, and then they switched, like wouldn't she know how the way to get out?
Yeah, well she's handcuffed. That's the thing. She's kind of a prisoner for a while.
But then like also like. How does she eventually, like, who gets her out of the handcuffs, and how does she apparently at one point become, like, the leader of the revolution?
And why is she a little kid? Why have all these people decided that she's the chosen one? I mean, right?
It's because do the tethered know that she's not tethered, so that we could use the untethered to get us info to how to become, like, because so we get, like, her friend, Kate Moss's character.
Yeah.
Her shadow self tries to start crying when she's showing that the shadow husband is dying, and try to replicate what a real human would do, right? And then she just starts laughing because she's sinister. And I just kind of feel like that's what is that what she brought to the table to be able to teach them, like, this is how you would act in up there?
I wonder what I always wondered is, does she start to teach them about free will?
Mm-hmm.
Because there is these instances of them having free will, it seems like, versus other points where it becomes convenient to just, oh, you have to mirror me and do exactly what I'm doing.
Yeah, because remember we get the scene where they're on the roller coaster, so all of them are like fake in a roller coaster and acting like, and that's what I mean. Is like, well, how do you break the free will chain? And is it because they saw that she had free will? And I know we get, again, this like what I mean is like, I think I would need to watch it again, but like I know we get the scene of like when her dancing, the ballerina scene is like, that's the point where she breaks the free will, right? Like we get that reveal, and then that's when all the tethered, like, you're the chosen one. You get that, like we get that yeah, exactly. We get that Superman scene from Zack Snyder, you know, where they all put their hands out.
Like, yeah.
So
Superman in Mexico.
Like, even that scene to me, I guess yesterday I started talking about like, this is the scene kind of explaining as much as it's gonna explain in terms of she broke her free will that day. But then that's where I have all the questions, like, okay, so she taught all of them how to break it, but why her? That's like just convenient to the story, right?
And what's her chain of command, right?
Yeah. Okay. Because who gets them the red suits? Her? Because she has free will now, like you said. Like,
but she doesn't know what Amazon is because she got trapped in there in the 80s. It's now the 2010s at this point in the movie.
Never even saw the Lost Boys on there.
Yeah, well, maybe. Oh no, she could have been an extra though.
Yeah. But that's what I mean is like, so with our reveal, those questions start to pump up more, and because it's like, yeah, the reveal is like, it's cool, it's really cool. And everything about this movie is really cool.
The way they use I Got Five on it is very cool.
Yeah, it's very sick. Which that's kind of something we haven't brought up, actually. The score in all three of these movies are from
Michael Abels.
Michael Abels. And the sound has become, sometimes we call it the Jordan Peele sound, but it's really it's him in all three of these movies. And I think that is where this movie gets elevated, is the score is perfect in almost all of the kills and all of those moments of suspense.
If we didn't have this score, it wouldn't be as good of a movie. This is one of those movies that really is, it's done a service by having such a great score. Like I personally think this is a 5-star movie, but if it didn't have the score, it'd be like a 4 or 3.5 or something like that. You know what I mean? Yeah. I do think it's got like the John Williams effect or like the Bernard Herrmann effect, where it's like, this is making it so much better because so much of the horror also comes from the way the score is used. It's got those, like, I don't know if it's violins or, you know, some kind of string instrument, but that you know what I mean? Yeah. That feeling you get throughout the whole movie, and the way it's used in hand in hand with like the body movements that we see of like how the tether is like being jerked around by the above ground person. So like seeing the sound employed with the like the body acting. Yeah. I just feel like it elevates it and makes it so much scarier. Something that we probably wouldn't really appreciate if it was done by somebody else.
I think those moments that you're talking about, just because we did the horror bracket not too long ago in terms of which one as a pod we all like so much, but like, you get those things of why we think Suspiria is so scary, right? Those moments of like where it's not just like a slasher or anything, but that unreal knowing like what is going on, and then getting those slasher moments from all of our classics you talked about, like Nightmare on Elm Street, and they're so mixed in this film in such an American way that I honestly, because we started talking about this because like the plot holes, right? All of those aspects of great filmmaking that were put into this with the score, the cinematography, the what is the underlying themes, makes me overlook those plot holes. And that's why I think it's very unique. I don't think I would usually, like, if somebody else had made this movie a different type of way, I don't think I could overlook those plot holes. But because I almost feel like I sometimes misunderstand this movie, or I still haven't really grasped exactly what it's trying to tell me. And that's why I'm always little like, I don't know if it's that, or I genuinely don't. Like, those plot holes sometimes do get to me, you know?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both, I would say. Because it really is, I mean, I hate to say it again, but it really is such an interesting movie and such an interesting take on horror, and something that is not exactly an original concept, but giving it such an original twist. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and just to, like, kind of bounce off what you were saying, too, the score in such certain moments, like when the ballerina scene, like the kills, right, when they're kind of fighting each other at the bottom, like this doo doo, like you said, the violin, like it just ingrains in my brain, like when I think about like favorite horror movies that I've seen. And even though like sometimes I feel like I don't know how I sit on the fence with it, it's not because it's not a miss. Like we talked about how I would give him the most improved player, but there's just certain things in this movie that I think don't hit as well as I would like them to. But it makes me feel like, but the highs are so high. There's some of the highest in his 3 movies so far.
Well, to get that performance out of these actors, to have this original idea, to step up in scale, and to go full on genre, like I wouldn't say it's like an exploitation film or anything like that, but it heavily leans into it by the end.
Right.
Like we get this apocalyptic ending. I do think that he brought so many new things to what he had already established with Get Out that it makes this movie too good to the where like I don't really care about the plot holes, even though I do feel like there's kind of a lot of them.
Yeah. No, but that's it's like I get it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm
like, damn, he's cooking.
yeah. Be like, damn. Be like, that's, you know, that's, what do they call it? Like, the cheese that has holes in it.
Swiss cheese.
That's Swiss cheese, but it's still Swiss cheese. You know what I mean? It's like, damn. Because this is yesterday, I just felt so, you know, in a very unique situation with this movie, because it's and Nope in a way kind of carries to me in a little bit the same way, but because Nope is so much more, it is more UFO based, right? That it kind of like the misunderstanding makes sense, because it's like, well, this is a whole other species. But the fact that here it's like there's so many things that would have to go right for this to realistically happen.
Yeah.
That's what kind of throws me off a little bit. And it's like, very convenient to the story. But I also put myself like I'm watching a fucking movie.
Yeah.
You know? Like I didn't like we watch a lot of things that are very unrealistic. Every Marvel movie is very unrealistic, and how come we don't use that trope there, right? And so it's kind of like, for the sake of this movie, these plot holes will become unanswered, because I think even they don't have the answers to these things.
Yeah,
like
definitely.
the Tether don't know why they're putting on the red suits either. Like they could just be there.
They don't even know because it's because of Michael Jackson.
Yeah. They don't know that there's like she put in.
They don't even know Michael Jackson. What a sad existence.
Is this shirt? Yeah, like, what a sad existence. Seriously, but you know, those are like, I can overlook these because, and in another way too, it's talking about like the influence of the Chuds, right? And like I've never seen that movie. I just know how
I watched it after. Like after I had seen Us for the first time.
What I was gonna say is Us better than that movie?
No fucking shit, dude.
Chud
Chud sucks.
Like, so you take a concept that probably arguably already fucking sucks, right?
Yeah.
Or like you're already like, okay, this is very convenient.
More people.
Yeah. And then you have somebody that's as good as Jordan Peele and be like, this is how much you could realistically probably elevate this concept without it becoming at once. Like you'd have to have Dr. Frankenstein at the bottom over there just cloning these, and like that'd be the answer. Like, oh, there's a guy who's doing it. Like, oh, okay, but then that really just is too corny for the generation of quote unquote elevated horror that we're at right now. We have to have something that is a little bit misunderstood, and I think that's what this movie is really good at. And sometimes the plot holes seem to be a little bigger than they might be in Hereditary, you know, but that's what a misunderstanding true horror film would be. Like, what the fuck is going on? Like we like The Lighthouse. What is going on? Right?
Yeah, I mean that doesn't exactly leave you with answers.
Yeah, exactly. And like,
oh, it was a tale of Proteus. Duh. Like,
so I think like sometimes like, you know, Jordan Peele, because these movies are funny, so he just knows how to appeal to a mass audience, and that's why we found out with Nope, it's still the only resonating name, it seems, in horror that could draw people in of all kinds of moviegoers, general audiences, and then cinephile freaks like us. And I think it's because he knows how to create this funny movie, but then throws themes of like love of cinema from us, from stuff that sometimes we've talked about, and it's like people really love that B horror shit. And he's one of those people that does. And he elevates that, like we talked about with Quentin Tarantino, he elevates stuff that's probably not that good to a better status. And whether you think it's a perfect status or it could be improved upon, that's your opinion. But I do think he elevates those things.
Definitely. And I like what you said about Quentin Tarantino. I feel like Jordan Peele has obviously studied. I mean, obviously he studied the masters.
Yeah.
But I feel like he employs that just as well as Quentin Tarantino of taking these ingredients from other people and making it wholly original and creating these really powerful, striking images that it sometimes you ever watch a movie and you feel like you see an image that becomes ingrained in you so fast and you don't realize it's because you've seen it in some other way. Like, oh, The Simpsons referenced it, or I seen a photo shoot where they did exactly that same image before. Right. It's like things that are just, it's like these ideas that are in the air, you know what I mean? And you're kind of already taking them in without knowing it. It's like, how much shit did you know about Citizen Kane before you actually seen it? You know what I mean? Yeah, you're like, oh, exactly. I heard of Rosebud, or I heard of, you know, whatever. I've seen it being made fun of 1,000 different ways. And I feel like Jordan Peele takes certain things that we've seen before, but does it in such an original way where it just instantly feels ingrained, like, into your, like, movie brain. You know what I mean? Like the image of the tethered, the four of them standing together.
Yep.
You're like, that's such a striking image. And then when you see later on the cutouts of the four people, like the shit you do in school, like you cut the paper and make it look like four people, you're like, holy shit, that's something I've been thinking about forever. And I never seen it in this terrifying way before, but it's something that's just been in front of me my whole life. I
think like that image stands out to me too, because that's what it references, like us as a kids doing it. So such an innocent thing being turned sinister. And all it is being put in this world in very specific environment. And I think that's what this movie creates very well. And I think at the end of the day, I appreciate that more, that you could put me in a world that I would never have thought of, you know, but I could relate to these images like you're saying. And to me, it's like, I think it's funny that even Jason's mask, you know, it's a Chewbacca mask, right?
Yeah, and I always thought it was because Chewbacca Mom. Do you remember that? Mm-hmm. I always was wondering if that was was that just because like some 80s shit? Like, oh, I kind of want to, you know, some directors, they want to add tinges to their movie so you can't tell what era they're in. Yeah. Because like he wears a Jaws shirt, he's got the Chewbacca mask, his toys are not really toys of like a modern kid, you know what I mean? He's got like some cheap little magic trick, a little ambulance truck. It's not like he's on his iPhone the whole movie, you know, like the sister. So this Jason character feels like he's kind of stuck in the 80s. So I assume that's where the Chewbacca mask came from, but I always kind of thought it was because of Chewbacca Mom.
Chewbacca Mom. What I was going to say is him at the end after we get a reveal, him like, or all the time for me that really stands out because I have the Funko Pop. It's him putting on that mask when shit gets real. Like, damn, I'm putting on my mask, you know. Like,
oh, do you? I didn't even know that.
I have that I have that for Funko Pop, yeah. Like, and that's what I mean. It's just like I have a love for this movie, even though I think it's one of those movies for me. Like, I get that there's like, if you don't like this movie, I definitely get it, and I sit very on the fence with it, like of how, like I said, some of his highs in this movie, I'm like, are some of the best highs, even in. So like they surpass them in Nope, and Nope is a great spectacle movie. But I think that that's what sometimes I think I misunderstand it, because I'm like when I am watching it like I was yesterday, and I'm like, I wish every horror movie had this much care and thought and just like environment created. And like and sometimes it doesn't have to make too much sense, but it's still like this is still so well done. I can't ignore that it's so well done.
I mean, none of this is possible without Lupita Nyong'o's performance.
Exactly.
Too. I mean, she just does so much for this movie, and I want to get back to her a little bit because she is the movie, you know. And she really is. Her performance, as we've talked about her as Adelaide a little bit, but the red of it all is where it really just fucking takes off, and I think this is one of the highest highs, like you're talking about. This just creepy, one-of-a-kind performance I've never seen before. I was watching some behind the scenes before we started. She stayed in character the whole time on set, so like if she had a question about where they were in the script, she would do it in the voice. She would do these like creepy eye movements, you know what I mean? She just really embodied this movie monster that I'll remember for a very long time. I mean, I hope this is something people remember for a long time, but the way that I felt the first time I saw this, it still sticks with me every single time I watch it. Our first appearance we get of her when they break into the house, it chills me to the core every single time because I'm just shocked and surprised, even though I'm rewatching it, that of just what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
And there's so many moments in the movie, and I know you had mentioned this to me that you liked this was the split diopter shot that we get towards the end.
Yeah.
That performance with that shot and that music is like, this is peak
God.
cinema right here, right? And it's
cinema.
like Lupita Nyong'o having one of the greatest moments ever committed to film, and people are just not appreciating it.
Like that's literally perfectly the scene right there. Like, and it's just the nerd factor of like they don't use those anymore. Obviously, we've talked about them in Blowout, and every good movie that we like seems to have at least one of these shots. And
Yes.
Just to see it be used in this movie the way that it was used, to see both of their clear
Could it have been
faces.
used? It couldn't have been used more perfectly, like on an economical scale, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of like the message you're trying to convey and the shot you're gonna use to convey that message couldn't be any more perfect.
Tethered.
You're like, this shot is tethered.
Yeah, these two things have to go together.
With the music, you know what I mean?
And just how much has been built up in the story at this point.
Yeah.
That's why it's perfect. It's perfect. It really
That's
is.
got to be one of the highest highs of the entire movie. And
Exactly.
I know you talked about this in your Letterboxd review that you feel like the movie drags a tiny bit in the second half.
Yeah.
And that do you actually believe it's anticlimactic, the ending, or do you think that the second act kind of makes you feel like, okay, fine, we're finally at the end?
Good point. I think it's the fact that, you know how we kind of talked about when you get the reveal and now more questions arise for me?
Yeah.
That's what I meant by anticlimactic, because I feel like when you've built up this so much, I think you do expect more of a clear answer, because you're trying to now connect what is this director trying to get to, like what is the idea they're trying to convey to me. And I think that's what I'm saying. After certain views, I felt like maybe with this one, it might be because I know that it's coming. That's kind of what sucks after watching it the first time, you know, because I don't feel like I felt that way the first time. But with this one, I felt like because I knew that it was coming, for this one, I felt like it kind of dragged, because I was like, a lot of this is still acting like the twist kind of makes me have a lot of questions about this. So to me, this kind of feels like filler now, because when you get your point across, besides that scene that you're talking about, because that scene is perfect, but then I kind of feel like I have all these questions because of all this stuff that's happening here. So why even show me it in the first place?
So I think what happens is that because we have two reveals in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that there's doppelgangers, and then the big twist at the end about who we've been rooting for, who we should be rooting for. Those two big things being sandwiched in between kind of not straightforward, but just a run-of-the-mill horror thriller movie.
Exactly.
I think it has too many peaks and valleys. Like, it peaks with that first reveal, and then it peaks at the second
That's a good way
reveal,
to put it.
and then the ending. I would say it is anticlimactic, but it's such a good ending that it's still satisfying.
That's why I think
That ballerina fight
Yeah.
choreography with the music and the cool shots and all that. I feel like that is such a high, but that it kind of dragged ass a little to get there, and you still don't feel completely satisfied after the fight at the end with how the movie ends. So I don't really know what to say. Like, yeah, I do think it drags a bit, but it's just got such highs that it pulls through for me.
I see what you mean. Yeah. So I guess it's like, that's what I'm saying. Maybe it might be because it's not my first watch, and I'm kind of like, I know it's coming.
But that works so well in Get Out, and that's one of the things people love about Get Out on rewatchability, is that's like, there's even more reveals of how the characters are acting in the background, or you notice things here and there that you didn't that totally give it away.
Because that is like what I loved in terms of rewatching it now. I believe this might only be my second time
Ever watching this?
Maybe at most third, but I believe it might be my third. I think I rewatched it again, like after we watched it in the theater, like between the time. But I did really like this was the time I really paid attention to. I sat my ass down and listened. You know what I mean? But no, it was like how in the beginning she doesn't really like talking to anybody, because she's like, I don't really like doing the whole talking thing, and it starts to make sense, you know, after you've known, you know, at the end what happened. So I do pick up on those things, but I do think that it might be partly because of that. that it just felt to me like that middle section that you're talking about between those two feels like more run of the mill than the other half of the movie for me. And it's not like, and that's why I put a lot of thought into it, because it's not that it doesn't make the movie bad to me, but I think it kind of takes me out of the how much I believe in, like it's not as believable as the other two, you know. And like I know that the whole concept in Get Out is like that's not believable either, but the sci-fi aspects of it kind of explain it. Like we talked about, they had the kind of the easy reveal there for you in Get Out, but in this one, because there's not even a slight answer to some of the things that are happening, I end up feeling like everything is building up to this reveal, but the reveal isn't paid off to me, because it's not like we have those answers that necessarily I would seek. But I think this kind of happens every time I talk about it more, or kind of truly sit down and think about why I would even have so much to say about this movie. Is I obviously like it if I have so much to say about it, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm starting to, I guess, kind of love it for what it is, and just kind of being like, I don't think, after knowing what kind of the path that he's going in and the projects that he likes and the things that he picks up as inspirations, I'm like, I don't think I can just kind of be like, I overlook those plot holes like you're talking about. And then I kind of think I need to kind of readjust in terms of what to look out for when I do this movie on rewatches, not trying to look for that same, oh, this makes sense to me now, because it's not. I don't think it's all of a sudden going to click 100%.
There's no reveals there for the rewatch, you know, like, oh, that's how they all got cloned. Oh, this is what's going to happen. That's not there. No. That's not part of it. And I mean, I know The Birds is one of the inspirations for this movie, and The Birds has been given 1,000 different meanings of what it means. And I feel like with that apocalyptic type ending, there's no reveal, because I mean, I feel like one of the easy ways out of this is to say this is the end of the normal world, right? Mm-hmm. It's kind of got like a Cloverfield Army of the Dead type of ending where it's like, well, everybody's fucked.
Yeah. And I think that's when like yesterday is more about actually appreciating the performances that are done here. Like how this is a carefully crafted film, and how, yeah, it may have its plot holes for me, or maybe I don't like exactly how the relationship between the tethered and the untethered is really explained, but everything else in this movie I like so much.
Yeah, I mean, it's got some hits, it's got some misses, but overall I think it's still extremely good.
Yeah.
It's one of the better movies of its time. I mean, 2019 was a really good year for movies. Mm-hmm. We're talking Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, we're talking Parasite, but I still think that this is really up there for my favorite movies of that year as well. Like, because I think about this movie quite a bit, and I still, even though we've done a podcast on it, I'm still struggling to kind of grasp this movie. I feel like this was not as easy to talk about as Nope was, and it's not as fun to talk about as Get Out is either.
Yeah.
It's more of a homework assignment than the other two are.
I will say that, yeah, I think that's true, and that's what I mean is maybe I could attest to maybe I don't understand this movie as much as I'd like to. Maybe I'm not. Maybe once it does click,
or maybe it's not meant to be understood, right?
And that's what I'm fighting for. And it's like, and if it's, once I get that answer, I think like and it's kind of heading toward it's not meant to be understood. And once I can get that through my head and not question it in my head, I think I will appreciate this film for what it is.
Yeah. It feels like it's very simple, right? But that we're fighting for this, like, no, it's got to have this deeper meaning.
Because Nope kind of has it.
Yeah.
The deeper meaning, and it doesn't really give you the answers, but they talk about it points you in the right direction. But in this one, it gives you the themes, and it doesn't point you in any direction. It's like, what did you get from this film? It's one of those movies. And it's kind of like, well, okay, because then at that point, it becomes emotional spectrum. Like, what are the emotions that I get through it? I laugh. I get really scared. And I'm like, that was tight.
Yeah.
Like, isn't that enough, right?
Yeah, right. Like, isn't that a good time at the pictures?
Yeah. And like, ultimately, that's what they're seeking to entertain us, these movies. And I think Jordan Peele understands that. And this movie entertains me.
I think Lupita Nyong'o called it thoughtful popcorn. Like, that's how Jordan Peele wants to make movies.
Exactly.
These big, fun spectacle movies, or these big out there ideas, but also, you know, you can enjoy your popcorn and your soda pop, but you also want to, you know, what did that mean when I walked out, right? Dude, this movie leaves me doing my Benoit Blanc. It makes no damn sense. It compels me, though.
Yeah, exactly.
I also feel like Jack Skellington when he breaks the little Christmas ornament. But what does it mean?
Exactly. It's just, but I think that's why I sit on the fence about it, about being real about it, right? Like, do I like it because it does that? Do I not like it because it's that? And that's something I'm having an internal. But to think that this is his second film, you know, he only has 3. It's not a miss at all. You know, it's just I feel like that's a personal thing. And then anybody else who has agreed, because this movie is his most divisive, I think.
Yeah,
people seem to really like the first and third one right now, but the second one seems like, I think a lot of people would say it was a sophomore slump. Some people think this is like, in terms of, I know we both have Letterboxd, but this movie has more 3-star ratings than it has 5-star ratings. So, and I think those plot holes speak to those people do not like those plot holes.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things with movies. Certain films, you don't even think about these things. They just get a pass. And other movies, maybe it's the expectation from the director. I mean, when you get that kind of acclaim that Jordan Peele got right after Get Out, you're expecting a masterwork. You're not expecting him to have a sophomore slump, or to have a movie full of plot holes, or, you know, things that are perceived as plot holes.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, this is like, I mean, good for him. He has already kind of surpassed a certain level that a sophomore filmmaker might be judged differently for.
Same as Eggers.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, how come The Lighthouse, no questions asked, be like, oh, this is a masterpiece, right? Like, yeah, what happened? Tell me what happened.
Yeah. Explain to me what this means.
I mean, that we love that movie just as much. I mean, that's got to be one of our all-time favorite movies as a pod, right? The Lighthouse.
We understood from the first watch that I wasn't supposed to have the answer.
Even from the trailer, I was like, I don't think I'm going to understand this movie.
Literally. Yeah. But then this movie, I want, you know, like I'm kind of not giving it that pass. And then that's what the kind of like for me, I wonder why.
As a pod, we have Jordan Peele stock, so that's got something to do with it. You know, like, this is one of our guys. I mean, he's on our Mount Rushmore. He's been mentioned since the very first episode. I wouldn't put it past us also that we're just Jordan Peele biased as well, which I don't care. Yeah.
I don't care. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't
fucking love this guy and his movies. Again, I want 1,000 of them.
Yeah.
So I believe in Jordan Peele supremacy, and I don't really have much more to say right now.
I think that's really what it comes down to, is I'm just a stan. And it's not because it's just you know, it just happens to be somebody around that came out when I'm out. It's that they're original stories. That's the most, the point that stands out to me the most. Was he just if he was just making remakes or something, I wouldn't give him as big of a pass. Or I'd be like, yeah, you know, he makes cool remakes or he makes cool movies, but I'm not going to give him that pass for these plot holes. But for this, it's like, well, the fact that you still could tackle such an ambitious project and execute it in the way that he did. And for the most part, I think it has, like I told you, some of the highest highs, and you brought them up. And for you to bring them up in a way that we hadn't talked about those scenes, but we're both on the same page of why this movie stands out, I think is why maybe we have the bias. But I think it's just those scenes are peak cinema to me, like in terms of some of the best directors I've seen in my whole life that we've seen. Like these movies, all 3 of them have just scenes in them, or the whole concept in them, where I'm like, that's so, like, if I could ever dream of writing a movie, I could hope that that's where I would be, that I could even come up with something that's as well written as any of these 3, even with the plot holes that this has. Like, I could wish that my movie would still be that good made and well, you know, received, even if it has those plot holes.
Yeah, like, this man doesn't miss.
Yeah,
it'd be great.
Even when he might miss, even when he had that like sophomore slump that everybody might have, like, this is his miss, maybe. Like, this is his miss. Like, damn, what a miss.
Even when I was wrong, I could have been right.
Yeah, exactly. That's what this movie. That's the energy this movie has.
Yeah, I mean, I don't got too much more to say. So, Jordan Peele supremacy. Thanks for checking back into the Grand Cinema Hotel. Like, subscribe, comment. Find us on all the podcasting platforms. You already know what they are. I don't have to say it. Nate, we miss you. We love you. We can't wait to have you back. And we're out.
See you guys.